And then we started laying down cardboard and wood chips. That was a lot.
Yeah, there was a lot.
I feel like we've been on the land that we're on now at the Hobby Homestead, as we've so lovingly called it, for 4 years, going on year 5. It's kind of easy to remember because 2025 will be year 5. And I feel like it's a good time to check in with each other and with our to-do lists. We've had really detailed lists over the last 4 years where we lay out the garden plans and then also the construction plans, all the infrastructure plans that we want to get done each year. And I think for the most part, we've gotten them done in the year we wanted to get them done. But it's good to go back and check and see how it went and how overwhelming it was and things that we maybe wouldn't try to do again. So we're gonna share some photos as we talk through our to-do list. We have like a little outline in front of us that will remind us of the things that we said we were going to do in each year, and share some photos as we go so that you can see the progress along the way. One thing that I like to do with my garden planning, and I think I shared this before, is make a theme for the years. And so year 1 for us was 2021. We had just moved here, and the theme for me was the year of observing and planning. This was made easier because we had a newborn baby, and so I couldn't do things in the garden very much. We still found ways, but for the most part, I had to just sit and observe and make plans in my head for how things were going to go.
Well, that, and we always talked about doing that in our first year at a new house.
It's true.
That's what you got to do.
It's true.
Yeah.
My mom moved into her new place in November last year and immediately started ordering dozens of fruit trees and everything. And I gave her a really hard time because that's not the way we do things. We sit and we watch for a year. And still we've had to move a fruit tree or two. Like, even though you sit and you plan, things still change. So in spring of 2021, the first big task, infrastructure wise, the first big task of all was moving our chicken coop.
Which was the last thing we moved of all the things. During the height of COVID, you had just got out of hospital for potentially early term labor.
Because it was stressful.
And the last thing we had to move, we being me, my dad, my father-in-law, and a friend. And your mom helped a bit, but she was also helping with you and Avery because you were in bed at that point. Was to move this chicken coop, and it was big, and I had measured everything, and I had a whole plan of how I was going to take it apart, and we had these chickens living in the coop. And the first thing that went wrong was when we went to move it, the coop didn't actually fit through the gate because our neighbors, I think, had built a new gate
and a new fence. The fence wasn't even there when we built it.
And so it no longer fit through the way I had planned it to when I first built it. So I had to chop the legs off of it and Frankenstein it together, which was fine. It worked, but it was a bit stressful in the height of all of that. But our chickens then made it to our new home safely. But it was quite a bit of work.
Yeah. And then because I couldn't really do any gardening, but I was craving growing plants and I really wanted to get things started, my dad helped us out a lot by digging up some patches of ground and just planting some native plants. I called these our nursery beds. They were just like holding beds for where we were going to grow up native plants. I knew they weren't going to stay there, but it was like, you got to get these things started. The old adage with perennials of all sorts is that in year 1 they sleep, year 2 they creep, and in year 3 they leap. So we really wanted to get them in the ground, even if I had to dig them and move them a few feet later on, just so that they could start growing. So that happened in the summer of 2021, just getting some perennials growing in our space. And then in the summer also we removed some invasive species and just some trees that were where we didn't want them. My dad was a huge help with this as well, and I think your dad came at some point with a chainsaw. There was a lot of heavy lifting by our family in that summer to help us out. We had like this giant willow tree, which is in a picture we'll show, and it was quite beautiful, you know, it had its purpose, but it was also sort of rotting out from the inside. It had never been maintained. Limbs were just dying inside it. It was falling apart, and it was in prime location. Like, we knew that we would want to put infrastructure and gardens there that we wanted there. So we cut it out and had a stump grinder in to grind the stump. It was $300. It's one of the first big expenses in the garden. We did some solarizing where my mom and I just like dug up a foot deep of soil to get out a bunch of gout weed, and then put black plastic over it for a full 12 months. Because in our latitude, the sun's not strong enough to do solarizing like you would do it in more southern climates. So we left it there for 12 months and it worked. But it was a lot of invasive weed removal that first year too. And then the summer flew by, and in the fall we started marking out spaces. I used spray paint for some of the garden mapping, and flags and old hoses. You can like do outlines on the ground with old hoses and then just wiggle them around to figure out the outline that you want. And then we started laying down cardboard and wood chips. It's called sheet mulching, and it has been so effective. We were so lucky to have 2 local-ish sources of cardboard that was free to us. So we had one of your friends brought us a giant van full of cardboard, and then one of my family friends brought us a big truck full of cardboard. And so with that and whatever else we scrounged from our neighbors and from our moving boxes, we covered, I don't know how many square feet, like
A lot.
400 square feet probably at the end of the day. It was a lot. And we did the wood chips like 6 inches deep too.
Yeah. A
And it
lot
was
of wood chips.
all free. All the cardboard was free. All the wood chips are free because of Chip Drop and local arborists. It is a lot of hauling. Oh yeah, and then we want privacy. So our backyard faces onto a busy road and some apartment buildings, and it's just deciduous trees.
Yeah,
like
so in
that.
the summer you can't see the road at all. You can't see the buildings at all. But the moment fall comes, you can see through, and it's just
You can
like
hear more cars.
Yeah.
So we planted about 20 eastern white cedars along our back chain link fence. And now 4 years into it, they're finally like this tall on me.
Yeah. We also took down, so we had a 10 by 12 shed that was right beside where we put the chicken coop. Our intent was always to take that shed down because it was in pretty rough shape. I think the fence was holding it up. I don't know what was holding the roof up. But then we decided to have our fence redone with our neighbor the following spring. So then it became an urgency to get the shed down. So I took the shed down, and I took it down all by myself.
This was still in year 1.
And,
We had a brand new baby.
in the fall. And then I had my dad come to help me. Essentially, I cut it down, so I moved it to the other side of the yard. It was quite difficult because it's on a area that's quite slanted. The yard is quite graded to go to a storm drain, and I didn't want to disrupt that, so I built the foundation in that area. It was quite tricky, but I got it level, and then we rebuilt the shed, but it was a slightly different footprint. I think I went to like 10 by 10. Redid the roof entirely, and reshingled and all that good stuff. So we had our garden shed moved.
And then the last thing we did was just plant some bulbs. It's along the same lines as planting those perennials as soon as you can. The sooner you can start to get bulbs in the ground, the sooner you get rewarded by it the next year. And so we did have some daffodils to look forward to in our second year here, and some tulips and crocuses and things.
And demolished the pool shed, which was against the fence but closer to the house. And again, had to have down in order for the shed to go in because for some reason both of the sheds were
attached to the fence,
which was not structurally sound. So both of those had to come down. So I also pulled that down in fall 2021.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then every winter we turn inside. So all these projects happen out in our garden in the summer, spring, summer, and fall. But as soon as they're done, as soon as there's no more evening light hours to work outside, we focus on the inside. So in the first winter here, we renovated the basement. Yeah. There's always a project.
Always.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up at the end of year 1 so that this video is not 1,000 years long. So if you subscribe and you hit the little bell icon, then you'll get notified when we post the next video. I'm not sure if I'll post all of these in sequential order or if there'll be something else that happens in between. I will do year 1, year 2, year 3.
Please make sure they're in sequential order. I'll go crazy.
But I mean, something more pressing may come up. I have to squeeze in there.
Yeah.
So this is the end of year 1. I hope that you'll come back and join us for our review of year 2.